ones, because you'll see those people who are actually looking for you that couldn't find you before because you weren't there to find. So they will start to come out there. All right, next one will be challenges social media will bring to business.
So there's always challenges when you're incorporating social media into your business. These are just some questions or some things to consider if you want to pursue actively in your business social media. One of the biggest ones is whether or not you're going to be an open company or a closed company. What kinds of things will you be allowed to say? If you're going to have your employees be able to blog or tweet? Are you going to have restrictions? On the website, there's a couple like samples of Twitter business policies, Twitter guidelines. That was just the study that I got the 8% of people. 8% of people were fired due to social media misuse. People didn't like what they were saying. You know, you got to decide whether or not you're gonna bear it all, the good, the bad, the ugly, or if you're gonna, you know, maybe keep things under wraps. I mean, that's not to say that you should give away company secrets or, you know, tell people, oh, this is a secret recipe that we use for this. What was the phrase?
Really great price for it.
There's a difference between being transparent and being naked.
Yeah, there's thought leaders in social media. One of them is called Chris. His name is Chris Brogan. Was speaking at a convention down in Block, Indiana, and I kept pushing him because of people who are going to game the system, people who are going to push, people who are going to try to spam you and make you, trying to rack on your reputation. And I kept pushing because there are people in the room who probably before you asked the question, there were this utopian ideal to it. Everyone's going to be nice. Everyone's going to be polite. Peace, love, Janis Joplin until 6 in the morning kind of thing. And that's really not, it really can't be that case. And we finally broke him down because, I was talking about, well, what if competitors are looking at your stuff, seeing who you're talking to? What if they're, what if people are researching that? He's like, well, I get stuff stolen all the time. And I'm like, well, that must be nice. For the rest of us mere mortals down here, how do you defend it? And it finally got to the point where the quote she was bringing up was, there's being transparent and there's being naked. Engage, open, honesty, but then there's giving away the, then there's that whole point of giving away the farm. You might want to sell the cattle, sell the market, sell the milk. Boy, that was easy. But you don't necessarily want to give away everything. That makes sense?
This was a great example, and this kind of goes with negative comments, but this was kind of a negative comment that a company did themselves. DreamHost, back in 2006, they were moving data centers, and some bad stuff happened. I don't know if they lost it. You're smiling. Do you know what this is about? Oh, were you a part of this in 2006 when they moved? I don't know if they were just down or they lost stuff when they moved data centers, but they messed up and people were angry, and it took weeks for them to get things right, and they chronicled this disaster. I mean, they were up front. They were talking about the things that they did wrong. There were some act of gods. I guess there were some high temperatures and there were brownouts on the West Coast and stuff. So it was just things compounding on things. But they came forward and gave people an explanation of what happened and what was going on and what they were doing to rectify the problem. And of course, there were people that were angry, but a lot of people, they really appreciated what DreamHost did, coming up front and chronicling this disaster. And I personally don't host with DreamHost, but I really look up to them for that. And if I ever leave my hosting company, maybe I'll go with them and host with them. But this is a great example of bearing it all and bearing the ugly part and maybe getting the wrath of a few people, but you get the respect. I know they certainly have my respect.
Yeah, there's many times that you can go up there and it's taking the negative. Everybody knows that their site was down. Everybody knows that a whole lot of other people hosting sites were down. So it's sometimes best to go out there and be honest and be truthful, and encourage some of the wrath. But these people can say, "Oh, we know what's going on." They took this chance. They said, "Let's engage the people who are using our different sites. Let's engage the people so they can have a chance to see what's going on instead of just being caught up in the wind or you spending all day denial." Now, that's one of the things that can garner more respect and responsibility. So, it sounds like, a big comic book fan. It's almost how Spider-Man always had with great power, there's responsibility, also has great responsibility. It's the same way, you have great power when you're using social media. So you also have to make sure that you have a great responsibility to be honest with people, to provide a good service to them, and to make sure that you engage. Those are probably the most important things that you could, learn from that lesson.
Okay. Another big thing to consider is how you're going to integrate social media into your company. I mean, you can't go back to work after this and say, okay, we're going to have a social media aspect of our company now. It can affect all aspects of your company. The way
Actually, kind of can, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, it won't work.
We've heard about it because you get that all hyped up and you get all religious about it. Like,
but it could affect the way, it's going to affect the way you market. It could affect your workflow. It could affect, especially if you have employees that will be able to use social media. A lot of things are going to be taken into consideration. You know, are you going to be policing what's being said? Kind of what you were saying, like. And another woman was saying, do you delete the bad things? How are you going to police what is said about your company? You ultimately have control, and whether or not do you want to keep the bad stuff out and let only the good through? I mean, it's totally up to you, but you have to decide, you know, how you're going to do it, what protocols, what you're going to be out there in the open.
absolutely.
Your human resources also needs to evolve up above. Like I said, there were some policies that maybe you could look at. They're based on Twitter, but you could probably apply them to other social media platforms.
Like Google, how they have different corporate blogs and how some people from Google blog. You want to make sure that everyone knows what are the rules and guidelines that you want to put in place. You don't want to have it so ambiguous that you want to be proactive, not reactive. Even if you're just doing it for yourself, you kind of want to put in your mind, okay, how do I want to present myself? What are the ways to keep myself safe? If there's someone, especially the more people you add on to it, if you have a company or if you have a small group of people that are going to be, either blogging, using Twitter or using Facebook, you want to make sure that you have maybe at least talk about a code of conduct, or make sure everybody knows where their responsibilities lie.
You might even go as far as maybe doing employee training, showing, how to use it, how not to misuse it, maybe things that you can talk about, can't talk about, no giving away the personal recipes or things like
don't tell them
that.
the secret, 16 spices or something.
If something blows up in the office, don't necessarily tweet it right away. Yeah, there's not only that, like at work, we actually had developed having work accounts. We have our own personal Twitter accounts, but we set up ones for work. Like, if you follow me at work, the 6 times in a week I'll look at it, it'll be LMSEO, like for our search engine optimization department, where I think she's Nichole.
And Ellen Taylor.
Ellen Taylor. And if you saw, like, when we brought up Comcast earlier, it was Comcast Connie you wrote. I'm guessing that's not a real name. I'm guessing that's not what she uses off hours, but you can use it as a branding thing. You can also use it as a corporate thing. So you kind of, for the company, it's to be able to go, hey, this is what your quote, this is what you're saying under us. And then for yourself, you can kind of CYA by going, this is my personal one. I'm not going to use it for work. I'm not going to write to you. I'm not going to say it. So you can do that. Sorry, I jumped in again.
No, it's good. That was actually, I think that's the end of our section. So if anyone has questions or
Questions,
want to take
examples.
a quick break.
As far as employees using Twitter and Facebook and the like, do you have any control over what they do in their personal time with something like this? I mean, if somebody gets on Facebook and writes, boy, it really sucks to work there.
Mm-hmm.
You can.
Do you have recourse to that? I mean,
Sure.
The company code
it
of
seems to me
conduct.
that you should, but do you have to have that in
You want
writing
first or
beforehand
you
that
go
they're
first?
not going to say anything?
Well,
positive?
I know that some companies have a code of conduct that, that put out there, you will not say any disparaging things about, the company or represent the company. Because even if I, no matter what I do today, if I go out later on, I'm still a employee and representative of livemercial no matter what I do. And it's up to me to know that responsibility, to know that if I go out there and,
Start bad-mouthing.
start bad-mouthing the company, that I will be held responsible for that. So most places have employee code of conduct that goes, you don't stop being an employee at 5 o'clock. Most people don't even leave work until after 5 o'clock anyway. So you have to make sure that, everything that's on here, that's why you have to review the code of conduct to be able to make sure that, to let them know that, hey, you are responsible for what you say.
And that's what this.
You're starting to see it. You're starting to see it more and more. Like, first time I heard about it was in January, watching Sports Center, where when Charlie Villanueva the Milwaukee Bucks, was actually, when he was on the bench, was actually pulling out his phone and tweeting from the bench during an NBA game. And Scott Skiles had to pull it from him. And you've seen where other players are getting fined for, for tweets during practice or training or something for bad mouthing. And they can get away with that. They're franchising.